Do you ever feel totally lost on what to say in an email? Or you just don't know how to make it sound better so you can actually convert your email subscribers to buyers? I'm taking you behind the scenes as I audit my client's copy so you can see what I look for as an email strategist.
Being an online business owner is full of ups and downs. Some days you can't imagine going back to your 9 to 5, and other days you want to burn your whole business to the ground. We get it.
Welcome to Chaos to Conversions, a podcast of practical, no BS strategies to grow your online business. Each week, we're chatting about launching, copywriting, mindset, and more, so you can make sense of the chaos and do more of what works.
Join the conversation and let's grow together.
Welcome back to Chaos to Conversions. Like I said, I'm going to be auditing some clients' emails today. I've technically already audited them, but I'm going to kind of walk you through it. And I don't want this episode to be boring where I'm just reading you emails out loud and telling you the comments that I made on them. So for the sake of making this more interesting, I'm going to read maybe sections of the email, and then I'm going to tell you the feedback that I gave them. But I also want to help you take that feedback and apply it to your own business. So I'm not going to just be reading you emails. So if that's what you're concerned about, no worries. That would be a super boring episode. I do want to start by saying, though, what is the purpose of an audit? And what do I do during an audit? In case you're curious. So what an audit means to me is kind of like a double check. It's like having someone in your pocket you can pass something off to, and they're going through that mental checklist. As a copywriter, there are things that I am looking for. There are things that I do whenever I write that you, as someone who isn't a copywriter, may not naturally be doing. You probably have a mental checklist on other things that you're an expert with, creating products, setting things up for your course, whatever it may be. But for me, it's writing copy. And so I take my clients' emails or sales pages or whatever they might send me, and I'm going through that checklist of mine. I'm saying, okay, do they have these things? If they do have these things, are they doing it quote unquote correctly? Is there a way that we can make it better? Are they missing a piece? Could we boost up the messaging here? Do we need to change the messaging? So there's a lot that goes into an audit. It's not just me like reading through it and looking for grammar. That's not really the purpose. Although as I'm reading through it, sometimes I also do correct spelling mistakes I find because I'm the person who leaves spelling mistakes in my stuff. So I always appreciate when someone helps me out. The benefit to an audit for anyone that I work with is that sometimes you really just want someone to tell you that you're on the right track with something, or you want affirmation that what you're doing is the right thing or that it's going in the right direction. You're looking for that boost of confidence before you press send or you hit publish. And of course, we want to see success with our marketing. We don't spend time writing emails, putting together memberships and courses and products for them to flop. We want to see them successful. So having someone double check your work, kind of in a way, can really just help you feel like all the effort that you're putting in, it's going to work. Obviously, I can't ever promise someone that an email is going to make them a certain number of results or a launch is going to end up with a certain amount of clients, but we definitely can see more success when you're putting two brains together rather than one. So we're making sure we don't miss any of those essential pieces. So let's jump right in. For this first one, we're going to be looking at a client that I recently did one-on-one Slack support with. Actually, the first two clients I did one-on-one Slack support with, and then the third email, that'll be a surprise in a second. So let's jump into the first one. This client I did 30 days of one-on-one Slack support with. Her goal during this time was to batch out as much of her quarter 1 emails as possible. And part of that kind of urgency to get a lot of those pieces put together was that she has a launch going on. She's changing up her membership a little bit. And so she really wanted me to not only look at her weekly emails, but her launch emails and her pre-launch emails. So we had a lot of different stuff we were looking at, and she did a really good job of writing in advance. I want to say that she got the majority of quarter 1 done, but I don't know exactly if she has some filler emails coming in, but she had a lot that we looked at, and I'm really happy about that. The email that I'm going to be looking at here and talking about this episode is one she has prepared for the end of March. So she is actually building up to another launch. This one in particular is her launching a workshop. In a build email, something that I talk about in my workshop email GPS or that I talk about with my retainer clients that we do planning together, A build email is what I consider like a pre-launch type email. You're building up to that launch so that someone is more prepared to buy. And so we might be like poking at the problem. We might be talking about a desire that they have or a transformation that they might experience, talking about results that we've had. So again, we're like getting them prepared to make a purchase down the road. For the particular build email that this client is working on or that she wanted to write about is the problem, kind of poking at that issue that someone might be facing. And she identified it as they just don't know what to do next. She is kind of in the organization space. And so she's like, a lot of the people that I work with, they just don't really know how to tackle all this organization. They don't really know like what the next step is or maybe even how to get started. And so that's what she's focusing on in this email. Specifically looking at the email, she starts the email by saying, there are some things I really rock at. And she kind of lists out a few bullet points like decluttering and organizing, talking about books with friends, making really great desserts. And it's supposed to be kind of humorous. She puts like a little GIF in there. And then below that, she talks about things that she's not so great at, such as makeup or hairstyling or weightlifting. And she goes on to say that in these cases, she needs someone to tell her what to do. And so she starts talking about this concept of sometimes we just need someone to tell us what the next steps are. Just like I love having someone tell me what to do with my weightlifting routine or how to style my hair. What I identified as a potential problem in this email, I loved the messaging that she was going with. Clearly, she found that her audience, through working with them, through talking with them, that they just don't know what the next steps are in decluttering and organizing, and they need someone to guide them. However, most of this email she spends talking about herself. We definitely should talk about ourselves in emails because we are often making personal connections. But what I really wanted to see her do is transition from talking about herself and her story and her experience with needing help, needing guidance, to how they might need help and guidance when it comes to organization. And that just wasn't a connection that she made really clear in the email. I don't think that it's because she didn't know that connection needed to take place. I think it's one of those cases where, like, in your head when you're writing it, you're kind of assuming someone's making that connection. It's like telling someone a story and you're assuming that they're making the same inferences that you are. But sometimes we just have to spell it out. If you were ever a teacher, I feel like this is something I always struggled with as a teacher. I'm like reading something in a book and I'm assuming my kids are seeing that same parallel. Like, doesn't this remind you of something? But sometimes we just have to tell them, oh, yeah, doesn't this remind you of this other text? Or doesn't this remind you of this other movie? So anyways, we want to do the same thing for our readers in our emails. So I wanted her to kind of transition from when I'm weightlifting, I like to have a coach tell me what to do. And maybe you feel the same way when you're trying to organize your life, when you're looking at the clutter in your life and you don't know what the next steps are. And she can talk about some of those frustrations that people have. Talk to her about some of the experiences she's seen with her clients have and how having guidance was really helpful for them. It was really impactful. So also kind of showing a bit of that transformation there of when they did get guidance, what did that look like? What was the experience? What was the feeling? And I think that would make a much bigger impact when it comes to the build, because we don't want to just poke at the problem and say, don't you need help? But also, what are the benefits of getting help? So that was one thing that I talked about with that client. That is just one of the many emails that we looked at together. Again, I don't want to bore you by reading out 10 million emails. So let's move on to another client that I worked with and some advice that I gave them. This other client also did 30 days of one-on-one Slack support with me. And so we looked at several different things. We've been talking about keyword research and we've been talking about welcome sequences. But for this particular time, we were looking at a weekly email that they were going to send at the very beginning of the year, so around New Year's. I'm going to read you a couple of the sentences here, and maybe you can kind of guess where I'm going with the advice that I gave them and the kind of changes I requested that they make. That I'll tell you, of course. So one of the things that they were saying here is time really does fly when you're with your littles, right? Like your littles aren't little forever. And so your number one New Year's resolution should be spending quality time with your family. They then go on to say that there are a lot of families who they want to have great moments together and they want to spend time together. And yet every year they still choose this resolution of spending quality time with their family because they aren't successfully doing so. One of the things that I talk to them about here is that feeling of, it kind of goes back to with the first client, that poking at the issue. Here, I can see what they're trying to do, which is bring up a common thing that they hear from families. I'm sure you could tell they work with people who have little kids who really want to spend more quality time with their kids. And part of their business is putting together activities that make it easy to spend quality time and have really great moments with your family. So I get what they're doing. They're recognizing that this is a common wish that families have, parents have at the beginning of the year and throughout the year. However, I felt that the wording that they went about it was maybe a little bit guilt inducing. And I think that's somewhere we have to tread really lightly when we're poking at an issue or when we're talking about something that our subscribers might be feeling. We don't want to come at them of like kind of how they said in this line, they aren't successfully doing so. Because I have a pretty good feeling that a lot of these parents already feel a little guilty that maybe they aren't spending as much quality time. I'm not a parent, but I see all the time moms talk about that mom guilt. So I didn't want them to feed into that mom guilt or that parent guilt. So I asked them to change the messaging a little bit here. One suggestion that I made to them is that instead of saying, this is what your resolution should be, spending quality time with your family, why not acknowledge that this is probably already a resolution of theirs, just like they said in that email? And they can say, which is why your New Year's resolution is spending quality time with your family. And instead of saying, yet you still have this resolution because you aren't successful, you can say, yet you feel like there's never enough time because you have all of these things going on in your life. And you can list out some of the common struggles that they see parents experience and then transition into how they help and say, at our company, we know that life is busy. We know that these things are getting in the way, and that's okay. That's normal. But we're here to help with XYZ products or activities. Coming from a place of understanding, coming from a place of support, rather than leaning into that feeling of guilt. Again, I don't think that they were purposely trying to make their audience feel guilty. And maybe someone reading that wouldn't feel that way. But I just felt like the language was kind of teetering on that. So I think a takeaway here for anyone who's crafting an email where you are leaning into maybe negative feelings that your audience might be experiencing, that you come from a place of compassion. You can point out negative feelings that someone is having, but you don't want to make it seem like they're at fault, right? For those negative feelings, or it's something that they're doing wrong. Instead, give them permission to like cut themselves some slack and let them know how you can help them and solve that problem for them. So that's the second client that I did the Slack support with. We talked about a lot of different things during our Slack support, but I want to go to the third and final email that I'm going to talk about. And this one, I'm actually going to roast myself, although I haven't really been roasting any of these people, but I'm going to roast myself. So I actually pulled up an email from over a year ago that I wrote. And it was an email that did not perform really well, especially looking at the stats around that time. My stats have changed as my email list has grown. But at that time, it was pretty normal for me to see a bit of a higher click rate. And this email got kind of a low one. And so I was like, okay, let's go in here. I looked at this email in like over a year and let's roast it. To reiterate, I would never roast your email. I'm only roasting because it's mine. Okay, cool, cool, cool. For yours, it's a very kind and courteous audit where I'm very kind. Okay. I wrote it a year ago and I was talking about the marketing funnel. One thing to note here is that in this email, for whatever reason, I think I intended to write a blog about the marketing funnel and it just never quite happened. So I did link to an external blog article, which I don't think was good. I think even when I wrote this email, I knew that that was not a good call to action because I wasn't leading anyone to my business, even remotely. But it's one of those moments where I felt like the pressure to just get an email out there. And so this is what I wrote, which probably explains why it isn't the best. So at the very top of the email, I talk about how, I'll just read it. It says, compared to the flashiness of YouTube or the intimate nature of podcast, email marketing can feel a bit old school. And then go on to talk about the average ROI for an email. And then I say, but just because email's getting older doesn't mean it isn't hip, okay? And more importantly, it doesn't mean it isn't effective. So the problem with this email, I think, knowing what I know now a year later and the market research that I have done, is that that messaging is a total flop. I have not talked to, worked with anyone who has thought that email marketing is old school. Maybe there are people out there, I'm sure there are, who do think that. And those people are probably not on my email list because people who are on my email list are interested in hearing about email marketing. And therefore, they don't think that email marketing isn't effective as social media. If anything, They probably think that it could be more effective, or maybe they want to get off of social media. I have yet to work with a client who felt that email marketing is old school. And that makes sense because if they're hiring me for email marketing, they probably don't think it's old school. So I'm not saying there aren't people out there who think that, but the people in my audience don't see email marketing that way. Therefore, that was not an affecting lead in to what I'm talking about with the marketing funnel. It's kind of like this email really would have been great if I was talking on like threads to people who maybe are deciding if they want to go into email marketing or they're deciding if it's something that they want to invest in or utilize in their business. Not for the people currently on my list who have already said, yeah, I'm interested in learning more about email marketing or boosting my list. Okay. So that's already the flop here. I then go on in the email to say, for real though, email marketing doesn't have that same I'm going to stop and scroll for the next 5 hours addiction, but that's not the point of email. Think about the marketing funnel. Again, I don't think anyone is thinking about email as this like scroll stopping addiction. So I don't think that messaging is really a hit. But I see where I was trying to go with this, which is I was trying to talk about how email marketing isn't really, it can be a top of funnel strategy, like with your welcome sequences and bringing people on with your freebies, but it's also a great middle and bottom of funnel strategy to move people towards buyers and to keep buyers to continue to buy, right? Become loyal customers. And so that's really where I was trying to go with that. And that's really what I talk about in the last half of the email. That part is good. I'm talking about how it is a middle or bottom of funnel strategy, how people are, the longer they stay on your list and consume your content, the more likely they are to move towards the bottom of the funnel. All that is great. It was just the lead into that I think I lost a lot of people who are probably like, okay, no, I don't see it that way, or that doesn't resonate with me. So therefore, I probably am not going to resonate or I need anything in the rest of this email. Another reason I think that this email in particular had a lower click rate is that because I was linking to this outside source that like truly I didn't really want people to go and click on because it wasn't my blog or it wasn't my podcast or it wasn't my product. I really didn't like hype up what the call to action was. I just talked again about the different parts of the marketing funnel and where email sat in that. And that information was helpful. But then I just like stuck a random button in the middle of the email that was like, learn more about the marketing funnel. But I didn't tell them like what they would find if they clicked on that. Because again, I was writing this last minute. I really didn't want them to go there. So I think this is also a great lesson on why, even if you're a copywriter, you really shouldn't write your shit last minute because that's how it ends up not being that great. The last roast I'm going to leave myself with here is at the very bottom of the email. I said, so I'm going to challenge you. Look at the funnel photo up top. I had like a funnel photo that I put in there of the marketing funnel. And I said, mentally map out your strategies. What strategies are you using to target the different types of the funnel? Or are you mostly using top of funnel strategies? And again, I get where I was going there. I was trying to talk about the different parts of the funnel and get them to connect that to email marketing, see the power of email marketing in their marketing funnel. But I think that challenge is just like so deep and convoluted. I just don't think that was like a great way to end the email. I think it would have been much better if I asked them a poll type question and got them to answer, like, where do you think that you spend most of your energy? Top of funnel, middle, or bottom? Or are you familiar with the marketing funnel? Reply with a quick yes or no. Something that would make it actually likely for them to engage with me and to chat with me, because this challenge, that's a lot. I'm asking someone to go from reading a simple email to mapping out their entire marketing funnel. That's a lot, Branda. So again, I get where I was going with that. I think I could have done it a lot better. And maybe that's something I could have actually even turned into. I didn't have a podcast at the time, but that would have been a great lead in of like, listen to this podcast episode where I'm going to help you map out your marketing funnel and see where you land. That probably would have been a better CTA to send them to than some random blog post that I didn't even write. Okay, I wanted to end on an email that I have written because, again, I want to show you that all of us, even a copywriter, have moments where we can look back on emails and go, how could I have made that better? And all of us, even copywriters, can benefit from having people that we share with to get feedback so that we know we're on the right track, we're doing the right thing, boosting our confidence. And so I do this a lot. I have hired people to help me with copywriting, like hire them to write for me. I have copywriting groups that I'm in where I will sometimes ask for feedback on copy and writing for my own business. And I've also hired experts in other realms like podcast managers and Instagram strategists to come in and help audit my own business so that I can feel really good about the work that I'm doing on my podcast, on social media, marketing my business, because we're putting a lot of time into those places. If you feel like you could really benefit from having someone look over your copy, help you see if you're on the right track, give you some affirmation that you're doing the right thing, quote unquote, giving you that boost of confidence before you hit send or publish, and help you get that strategy that you're looking for with email marketing and sales copy and launch copy. If you would love for someone to help you with that, then I know my brand new membership, the Copy Huddle, would be perfect for you. The Copy Huddle includes weekly audits where you can send in any type of copy, from long form copy to weekly emails to launch copy, and I'll look over it and give you one on one personalized feedback. Throughout the month, you'll also get additional support from me. You can chat inside of Slack to ask questions. We'll have office hours. I'll have a quarterly challenge to help you accomplish different things with your copy. We're going to start quarter 1 with a re-engagement challenge and then move on to quarter 2 with a welcome sequence challenge. So there's going to be just different dedicated ways that you can revamp your copy in your business. I'm really excited to launch this new membership, and I hope that you join me in early February with the initial launch. I'll be launching with a beta pricing where if you join at that time, you will get that beta price as long as you're inside the membership, which you can end up saving like hundreds of dollars a year. So highly recommend making sure you're on the wait list so you don't miss that initial launch.
Thanks so much for joining the conversation today. If you want to learn more about how we can work together on email marketing, launch copy, or content planning, head to therelevantcollective.com. I'll meet you back here next Tuesday for more practical strategies to take your business from chaos to conversions.